In the vast, silent theater of war, battles are not always fought with steel and fire. Sometimes, the most decisive victories are won in the shadows, by minds sharper than any blade, by whispers that turn the tide of empires. This is the story of one such victory, an intellectual triumph that reshaped the course of World War II in the Pacific. It is the story of Joseph Rochefort, the eccentric codebreaker whose brilliance laid a trap for an unsuspecting enemy, sealing Japan's fate at Midway. To understand the genius of Joseph Rochefort, we must first understand the invisible war that raged beneath the surface of the grand naval engagements. This was the war of signals intelligence, of cryptography and cryptanalysis, the art of making and breaking secret codes. Imagine a message vital to national security sent across vast distances. To prevent enemies from reading it, the message is scrambled, transformed into seemingly random gibberish, using a complex system, a code or a cipher. Cryptography is the creation of these secret systems. Cryptanalysis, on the other hand, is the art of unscrambling them, of finding the hidden patterns and weaknesses to reveal the original message. In World War II, this was a race against time, a constant duel between the creators of unbreakable codes and the brilliant minds determined to break them. One of the most sophisticated coding devices of the era was the rotor machine. Think of it like a series of complex interlinked scramblers. Each time a letter was typed, it passed through several rotating wheels, or rotors, each wired to substitute one letter for another. After each letter was encrypted, the rotors would shift, changing the substitution pattern for the next letter. This meant that pressing the same letter twice would almost certainly produce two different encrypted letters, making it incredibly difficult to decipher without knowing the exact settings of the rotors, their starting positions, and the wiring inside. The Japanese, masters of their own destiny in the early war, believed their primary naval code, designated by the Americans as JN-25, Japanese Navy Code number 25, was impenetrable. And for good reason. JN-25 was a truly formidable system. It used a super-encipherment method, meaning that after a message was initially encoded using a code book, where common words and phrases were substituted with 5-digit numbers, those numbers were then scrambled again using a subtractive cipher system based on a second book of random numbers. Without both books and knowledge of the daily keys, JN-25 was a wall of noise. The devastating attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, ripped through the heart of American naval power in the Pacific. But amidst the chaos and despair, a quiet, intense battle was already underway in the basement of the 14th Naval District Administration Building, tucked away in a windowless vault beneath the headquarters of the Pacific Fleet. This was Station HYPO, the Combat Intelligence Unit at Pearl Harbor, affectionately known by its radio call sign, HYPO, and at its helm was Lieutenant Commander Joseph John Rochefort. Rochefort was not your typical naval officer. He was brilliant, yes, but also a maverick and eccentric. He shunned dress codes, often seen in slippers and a rumpled robe, sometimes not even bothering to shave. He preferred the company of his work to most social conventions. His office became his world, a chaotic landscape of charts, papers, and half-empty coffee cups. He chain-smoked, drank copious amounts of coffee, and slept on a cot in the office, often working for 18 hours straight, driven by an almost manic intensity. His team worked similar punishing schedules, fueled by adrenaline and the sheer force of Rochefort personality. But Rochefort's unconventional methods masked a mind of extraordinary analytical power. Crucially, he had something few others possessed, an intuitive understanding of the Japanese psyche, their language, and their operational habits. He had spent years in Japan, learning the language and immersing himself in the culture. This cultural fluency, combined with his sharp intellect, gave him an unparalleled advantage. Before the war, Station HYPO had already achieved significant breakthroughs. By late 1941, Rochefort's team had partially broken JN-25. They could read about 10% to 15% of Japanese naval messages. This was enough to get glimpses, fragments of intelligence, but not the full picture. The attack on Pearl Harbor, however, changed everything. The stakes were astronomical. The Pacific Fleet was crippled, and America desperately needed to know Japan's next move. Rochefort's team, numbering over 100 people, mathematicians, linguists, puzzle solvers, and clerks, threw themselves into the abyss of JN-25. They were racing against time, against the clock of inevitable future attacks. They understood that every partial solution was a step towards a complete understanding, every deciphered character a potential clue to victory or defeat. The process of breaking JN-25 was painstakingly slow and methodical. First, they had to identify the indicator's small pieces of unenciphered information, like date-time groups or specific call signs, that helped determine the daily key settings. Then, they worked backward, trying to reconstruct the additive groups from the second random number book. It was like trying to solve an enormous jigsaw puzzle where most of the pieces were missing, and the ones you had were constantly changing shape. Rochefort understood that success wouldn't come from mere technical proficiency alone. It would come from a combination of scientific rigor, linguistic expertise, and a healthy dose of intuition and pattern recognition. He encouraged unorthodox approaches, fostering an environment where ideas flowed freely, where status meant nothing compared to a brilliant insight. He trusted his team implicitly, shielding them from bureaucratic interference as much as possible, recognizing that their singular focus was the key to unlocking Japan's secrets. By early 1942, the situation in the Pacific was dire. Japan seemed unstoppable. They had seized vast territories, crippling Allied forces and consolidating their hold. American morale was low, and a decisive victory was desperately needed to turn the tide. All eyes were on what Japan would do next. Where would they strike? The fragments of JN-25 messages that Rochefort's team could read started to hint at a major operation. They saw references to Ryujo-class aircraft carriers, to combined fleet movements, to a large invasion force. But the crucial piece of information, the target, remained maddeningly elusive. The Japanese referred to their objective by the code designator AF. Where was AF? This is where the brilliant mind of Joseph Rochefort truly shone, and where his eccentricities clashed with the rigid bureaucracy of wartime Washington. While Station HYPO was grinding away in Hawaii, a rival intelligence unit in Washington, OP-20G, was also trying to break JN-25. Led by Commander John R. Redman, OP-20G was more traditional, more by the book. They frequently disagreed with Rochefort's methods and his conclusions. Washington believed AF was likely an objective in the South Pacific, possibly even the American West Coast. Rochefort, relying on his unique intuition and deep understanding of Japanese patterns, was convinced AF was somewhere in the Central Pacific. But intuition wasn't enough. He needed proof. Rochefort remembered a crucial detail. In previous JN-25 messages, he had seen references to AF often mentioning water shortages. This sparked an idea, a brilliant, audacious deception. If AF was indeed Midway, a small, isolated atoll in the middle of the Pacific, it would undoubtedly face water supply issues for any large garrison or occupying force. So, Rochefort and his team devised a cunning trap. They instructed the small American garrison on Midway Atoll to send out an unencrypted message over a low-frequency radio band that the Japanese were known to monitor. The message was simple, direct, and entirely fabricated. Midway's freshwater distillation plant is broken. Critical shortage of water. It was a gamble, a desperate shot in the dark. Would the Japanese intercept it? Would they believe it? More importantly, would they then use their own code to confirm it? The waiting was agonizing. But then, a few days later, a new JN-25 intercept came across the wire. The message, partially decoded by Rochefort's team, stated, "AF is short of water." The breakthrough was electrifying. The confirmation was undeniable. AF was indeed Midway. Joseph Rochefort's hunch, his genius, had been vindicated. He now had the undeniable proof that Washington had demanded, and the single most critical piece of intelligence the Pacific Fleet needed. With this critical intelligence, Admiral Chester Nimitz, Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, now knew exactly when and where the Japanese Imperial Navy planned its next major offensive. Japan was heading for Midway, aiming to draw out and destroy the remnants of the American fleet. But thanks to Rochefort, the element of surprise, Japan's most potent weapon, was now stripped away. It was a complete reversal of fortunes from Pearl Harbor. Nimitz acted swiftly and decisively. Despite being outnumbered in capital ships and aircraft, he understood the immense advantage of knowing the enemy's intentions. He deployed his 3 available aircraft carriers, USS Enterprise, USS Hornet, and USS Yorktown, miraculously repaired after damage at the Battle of the Coral Sea in record time, to lie in ambush northeast of Midway. The Battle of Midway, fought from June 4th to June 7th, 1942, was a brutal, chaotic engagement. But it was not fought on equal terms. The Americans knew exactly where to find the Japanese carriers when they would be most vulnerable, and what their primary objectives were. This foresight, born in the basement of Station HYPO, was absolutely invaluable. The Japanese, convinced of their numerical superiority and the secrecy of their plans, were caught completely off guard. Their reconnaissance planes were out of position, their operational plans rigid. They launched their initial airstrikes on Midway Atoll, unaware that a massive American carrier force was lurking just beyond the horizon. When American scout planes finally spotted the Japanese fleet, the trap was sprung. The ensuing aerial battles were fierce. American dive bombers, exploiting gaps in Japanese fighter cover and the disastrous timing of Japanese rearming efforts, descended like hawks. In a few desperate, glorious minutes on the morning of June 4th, 3 of Japan's 4 most formidable aircraft carriers, the Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu, were hit, set ablaze, and ultimately doomed. Later that day, the 4th, the Hiryu, was also crippled and sunk. The loss was catastrophic for Japan. 4 of their 6 largest aircraft carriers, vital for projecting naval air power, were destroyed. Hundreds of skilled pilots, irreplaceable in their training and experience, were lost. Japan's offensive capabilities in the Pacific were dealt a mortal blow from which they would never fully recover. The Battle of Midway was a decisive American victory and a turning point in the Pacific War. It halted Japan's eastward expansion and put the Imperial Navy on the defensive. Crucially, American losses were minimal in comparison. 1 carrier, the USS Yorktown, sunk after a valiant fight, and a single destroyer. This stark difference in casualties, a testament to the power of superior intelligence, solidified it as a truly clean intellectual victory. Joseph Rochefort and his team at Station HYPO had delivered one of the most significant intelligence coups in military history. Their relentless work, their unconventional thinking, and Rochefort's unwavering conviction had saved countless American lives and dramatically shortened the war. It was a testament to the power of human intellect, working in the shadows to shape the fate of nations. But the story of Joseph Rochefort doesn't end with triumph and immediate recognition. In a cruel twist of bureaucratic fate, Rochefort's maverick style and his previous disagreements with the Washington intelligence establishment led to his unceremonious removal from Station HYPO just a few months after Midway. His contributions were downplayed, his methods criticized by those who envied his success or simply couldn't understand his genius. He was reassigned to a command that essentially sidelined him for the remainder of the war. It would take decades for Joseph Rochefort to receive the full recognition he deserved. He was awarded the Legion of Merit in 1944, but the citation made no mention of his crucial role in deciphering JN-25, a secret that remained classified. It wasn't until 1986, nearly 2 decades after his death, that he was posthumously awarded the Distinguished Service Medal by President Ronald Reagan, with a citation that finally acknowledged his exceptionally meritorious service as officer in charge, Combat Intelligence Unit, during the period 7 December 1941 to September 1942. In 2000, he was inducted into the National Security Agency's Hall of Honor. The story of Joseph Rochefort is more than just a historical footnote. It's a powerful reminder that in warfare, as in life, innovation, intuition, and sheer intellectual prowess can be as decisive as any weapon. His fight against bureaucracy, his dedication to his team, and his unyielding pursuit of truth, despite overwhelming odds, define him as a true hero. The Codebreaker, who trapped Japan at Midway, stands as a testament to the quiet warriors, the brilliant minds working tirelessly behind the scenes, whose victories often go uncelebrated, but whose impact resonates through history. Joseph Rochefort's intellectual triumph at Midway didn't just win a battle, it changed the world. In the annals of military strategy, the Battle of Midway is a masterclass not just in naval engagement, but in the profound impact of intelligence. It wasn't a larger, better-equipped 40G that won the day, but a smaller, more whose-unit agile one, armed with knowledge. In this, Washington had often been at odds with Rochefort's conclusions, played a significant role in this bureaucratic maneuver. Red Victory men, along with other naval intelligence officers, wasn't etched, felt that Rochefort's unconventional methods were undisciplined, and perhaps more cuttingly, they struggled to accept that a unit operating in the steel out of a basement in of battleships or Pearl Harbor could outperform the better-funded and more centrally located the roar of artillery alone. It was forged in the quiet intensity of minds like Rochefort's, in the painstaking dissection. Operation of enemy communications, this clash. The psychological blow to Japan was immense. Wazen not only had just about personalities, it was about the very philosophy of intelligence. Gathering, they lost 4 precious fleet and dissemination. Washington favored a centralized hierarchical carriers and their experienced aircraft approach, where raw intelligence was carefully vetted and distributed from the top. Rochefort, however, believed in pushing analysis use, but they're as close to the combat zone as possible, where analysts could develop aura and intimate feel for the operational context and quickly adapt to of invincibility changing patterns. His Purple Gang at HYPO were given unusual freedom. Working around was the clock, shattered. They had confidently launched, often without an offensive, convinced of their strategic advantage, only to be AMB formal reports or extensive used and routed. The Imperial Japanese Navy, which had swept across the Pacific with impunity since Pearl Harbor, now had to confront the terrifying documentation reality that their secrets, driven solely, were compromised. They didn't know how the Americans had known. only that they by the urgency of decoding the next crucial message, this efficiency and raw effectiveness, while vital for had. This uncertainty, the war effort was seen, this seed of doubt sown by Rocheforts as a team, would plague challenge to establish protocols. Rochefort's transfer meant Japanese he missed out on the continuous crucial work of code-breaking that shaped the rest of the Pacific War. While his successor, Commander WWII Red Thompson Command, continued the work at HYPO with great skill for the rest of the war. The lessons from Midway, and specifically from Rochefort's work, extended far beyond the immediate tactical victory. It underscored the emerging removal of Rochefort undeniably deprived importance of signals intelligence as a fundamental the effort of a unique blend pillar of modern warfare. It proved of linguistic genius, intuitive insight, and sheer leadership. It was a tragic irony that the man who had provided the intelligence for America's greatest, that investing naval victory, was effectively sidelined for his success in decryption capabilities, fostering brilliant. He was sent to command a floating dry dock in sand but unconventional mines, and trusting the output Francisco, a posting of intelligence professionals, could yield dividends far greater than any conventional military expenditure. This understanding would permeate far Allied strategy for removed from the high the remainder of World War II, influencing campaigns in Europe and the Pacific alike, from the Battle of the Atlantic to the D-Day landings. But the triumph stakes world of intelligence, also of signals intelligence. Yet, the highlighted legacy of Rochefort's work, a recurring, frustrating truth that Midway endured. The principles he championed the importance of, brilliant minds often chafe against rigid systems, deep linguistic and cultural immersion, the value. Rochefort's story is a poignant example of how bureaucratic of decentralized analysis in close proximity to the battlefield and the necessity of fostering an environment where unconventional thinking thrives, it became foundational, even if his personal recognition was delayed. The success of Station HYPO, fundamentally, a resistance, proved to unconventional that intelligence, when leadership can sometimes overshadow or it delivered accurately and expeditiously, could directly least delay the recognition of truly vital contributions. His unique dictate operational success and minimize friendly casualties methods, his informality, and his willingness to challenge. The Battle of Midway wasn't just a physical victory. It was established norms were precisely what allowed him to a profound psychological blow to succeed where others failed. Yet, the Japanese, their belief in their divine destiny and the invincibility of their fleet, was shattered. The loss of 4 frontline aircraft carriers and their elite air crews represented in these same almost irreparable blow to their naval air traits made arm him a target for the very spearhead of their expansionist policy. The strategic initiative in the Pacific decisively shifted to the United States. From Midway onward, the Japanese Imperial Navy was those who prioritized order and conformity over results. The backroom boys of intelligence often find their victories and their struggles remain hidden from public view, sometimes for decades, because fighting the very nature of their work demands secrecy. A defensive war, stretched thin is short of water, ruse itself has across it become legendary, a testament to the power of human vast ocean, slowly bleeding resources and manpower. The methods perfected ingenuity. It was a gamble by Rochefort, a piece of calculated's team continued to bear fruit throughout the war. JN-25, though constantly evolving, never again presented the insurmountable wall it once was. American code audacity breakers continued to intercept, decode, and analyze Japanese communications, providing invaluable insights into enemy intentions, troop movements, and supply lines. This ongoing intelligence advantage allowed the Allies to anticipate born from deep Japanese counteranalysis, offensives, plan ambushes, and prioritize targets, effectively turning the invisible war into an intimate understanding of the enemy. It wasn't about breaking every single Japanese message, but about finding that one visible advantage on critical, exploitable weakness. It demonstrated countless battle that sometimes the most effective intelligence isn't a field's. Perhaps direct read the most dramatic example of this continued intelligence superiority of every enemy thought, but a clever manipulation that directly linked to the foundations laid by Rochefort forces the enemy to reveal their own secrets, was the targeting and shooting down of Admiral Is. Midoroku Yamamoto in April 1943. Yamamoto marked a crucial shift in the nature of naval warfare. The aircraft carrier, once seen the architect as an auxiliary to the mighty battleship, was of Pearl Harbor, and the commander definitively established as the dominant of the combined fleet, was on an inspection tour. Capital ship. The entire battle was fought by American intelligence, again through the interception and decoding of JN-25 messages, knew his exact itinerary, including flight paths, arrival times, and the aircraft-specific aircraft he would be using. This allowed, with opposing American P-38 Lightning surface fighters, to intercept his fleets never seeing each other. This plane over Bougainville and shoot transformation was guided in part by Rochefort's intelligence him down, eliminating one, which allowed Nimitz to deploy his limited carrier assets with of Japan Surgical's most brilliant precision. Rochefort's legacy naval, therefore, is strategists and a symbol of their fighting spirit. This operation, multifaceted, he was the visionary Operation Vengeance, was a direct outgrowth who recognized that the true battlefield was of the cryptanalytic capabilities that often the electromagnetic spectrum. He was the leader who inspired. Rochefort had so painstakingly developed and championed a diverse team to achieve the Joseph seemingly impossible, fostering Rochefort's story an environment where intense serves as a powerful testament to the often focus and creative problem-solving thrived. He was the overlooked heroes of wartime maverick who stood his ground against powerful figures in Washington, those who wield pencils and paper, convinced of his interpretation even when it flew, who stare into the abyss of complex ciphers in the face of conventional wisdom, and ultimately in whose silent victories he was the architect of a victory that saved a nation, proving that the pen, or in this case, countless tragedies. His battle, the deciphered message, could indeed be mightier than the sword. His life and work serve as a powerful reminder that history is not just shaped by armies and politicians, but by the quiet heroes who labor in obscurity, whose intellectual courage and relentless dedication illuminate the path to victory. Joseph Rochefort's story is a compelling testament to the extraordinary individuals whose silent battles determine the fate of millions, and whose genius, once revealed, continues to inspire generations, not just against the Japanese, but against the universal challenges of uncertainty, complexity, and entrenched convention. His unwavering belief in his team, his methodology, and his own insights, even when those in authority doubted him, offers timeless lessons in leadership and intellectual courage. The ripples of Rochefort's triumph at Midway extended far beyond the immediate conclusion of World War II. The very architecture of modern intelligence agencies owes a debt to the pioneering work done by Station HYPO. The emphasis on interdisciplinary teams combining linguists, mathematicians, and cultural experts, the understanding of the critical need for rapid analysis, and the appreciation for unorthodox thinking within intelligence cells, All these principles were validated, if not solidified, by the success at Pearl Harbor. The notion that intelligence should be proximate to the combat zone, deeply embedded with the operational commanders who would use it, rather than distant and purely academic, gained undeniable traction thanks to Rochefort's insistence on delivering actionable, timely insights directly to Admiral Nimitz. Furthermore, Rochefort's struggle against bureaucratic inertia and interagency rivalry provides a sobering yet vital case study for any large organization. His experience highlights the constant tension between innovation and established order, between the maverick who delivers results and the system that prioritizes conformity. It underscores the danger of letting personal grudges or organizational pride overshadow critical missions. The fact that his recognition was delayed, that he was sidelined despite his monumental contributions, speaks to the human element within vast systems, the fragile interplay of ego, power, and genuine merit. It is a cautionary tale that the path of brilliance is often paved with resistance, and that true visionaries frequently pay a personal cost for their foresight. In the decades following the war, as the Cold War ushered in a new era of global espionage and technological competition, the lessons of cryptanalysis and signals intelligence became even more pronounced. The understanding that the next war might be won or lost not on battlefields, but in the quiet hum of supercomputers and the relentless pursuit of information supremacy, had its roots in the breakthroughs made by Rochefort and his contemporaries. The investment in highly specialized intelligence professionals, the development of sophisticated listening posts around the globe, and the continuous evolution of code-making and code-breaking technologies were all a direct continuation of the invisible war that Rochefort had so masterfully waged. His legacy also speaks to the profound power of human intuition, especially when combined with rigorous data analysis. While modern cryptanalysis relies heavily on computing power, the fundamental insight, the feel for a pattern, the psychological understanding of the enemy that allowed Rochefort to orchestrate the AF is short of water ruse, remains irreplaceable. It teaches us that technology is a tool, but human ingenuity and cultural understanding are the ultimate weapons. He understood that behind every code lay a human mind, and that by understanding the habits and thought processes of the Japanese Naval Command, he could find the cracks in their seemingly impenetrable systems. Today, as we navigate an increasingly complex world filled with new forms of information warfare and cyber threats, the principles embodied by Joseph Rochefort's work resonate with renewed urgency. The need for diverse perspectives, the cultivation of unconventional thinkers, the imperative to cut through bureaucratic red tape in times of crisis, and the absolute necessity of accurate, timely intelligence, these are not merely historical footnotes. They are enduring lessons for national security, for technological advancement, and for fostering environments where genuine genius can flourish, unhindered by the very systems it seeks to protect. Joseph Rochefort's triumph at Midway was more than just a battle won. It was a blueprint for intellectual warfare, a testament to the power of a single brilliant mind to change the course of history, and an enduring inspiration for all those who fight their silent battles in the shadows, armed not with weapons, but with intellect and an unyielding commitment to cracking the code. His story reminds us that true heroism often wears no uniform, fights no visible foe, and yet shapes the destiny of nations. It's a legacy etched not in brass and stone, but in the enduring silence of intercepted messages and the dramatic turning points they enabled.